Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Austin, and today it's time for a brand new video. It's going to be an introduction / 7-step crash course to playing Surviving Mars. I'll tell you the basics of how the game works and how you can get people living on Mars as soon as possible. I gotta thank the guys from Paradox Games who gave me an early access code to the game. It's been really fun to play for the last couple of weeks, and I really look forward to playing it in the near future. If this video gets 15 likes within the first 24 hours, I'll definitely post a little Let's Play over the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in step 1. Alright, so when you're first launching your game, there's a couple things you gotta go over. First of all, there's your mission sponsor. So in this game, the mission sponsor pretty much adjusts the difficulty of what you're playing at. So as you scroll through all of them all, at the very top, the difficulty bonus can either increase or decrease depending on the mission sponsor. So to start off easiest, the International Mars mission is without a doubt the easiest sponsor you can use, going all the way down to Russia. Now that all varies on funding, research per day, and starting applicants to actually go to Mars. So the funding has to do with how much money you actually have to work with. So with International Mars mission, you actually got $30 billion, which is just absurd amounts of money. You also got 300 research per soul, which is like 300 per day. Then you've also got 200 applicants that actually want to go to Mars. And then they also have their own little unique features and perks that make each one kind of unique from the rest of them. So yeah, International Mars mission, USA, Blue Sun Corporation, Space Y, which I always think is kind of funny instead of SpaceX, and going down to the hardest one being Russia. So each one does have their own little unique features, but the difficulty does increase as you go down the list. Right, so the second thing you have got to do is show your commander profile. Now there's a couple to choose from, quite a few, and they all vary with their actual specialization. Some can adjust amount of technology you earn. Some can adjust like certain aspects like fuel production. They're all very unique, and none of them are really that game breaking. None are any more overpowered than others. They all allow you to do the same thing, but they do adjust the difficulty bonus as well. So definitely try and figure out what playstyle works best for you, and then pick your commander profile from there. Alright, so next thing you can do is you can actually adjust your colony logo. So this is super minor. It just basically changes what logo shows up on your spaceship whenever you land it. So that's pretty much all it does. It's kind of cool. There's probably gonna be a mod eventually where you can upload whatever pictures you want to, and that could turn kind of questionable. But anyway, that's a fun little feature. The next thing that's actually pretty cool is the mystery feature. And this allows you to kind of change your own story mode behind it. So there's 3 difficulties: easy, normal, and hard. I always just like to randomize whichever one I pick, because I like to have a new story every once in a while. I don't want to have it seem too planned. So the mystery mode is definitely really cool, so you still have that story aspect and have something to look forward to and build up to. Alright, so the next step is to actually plan your cargo ship and organize your materials. So there's a lot that you can bring with you. The most important ones being the prefab buildings when you first get started. So these are buildings that have already been manufactured. They just have to be assembled once you get to Mars. So there's no actual resources required to build them. They just have to be assembled by your drones. Now that's another thing too, is I haven't played this before. Everything on Mars is being built by drones. There are no passengers sent on your very first ship there. So you have to make sure that you have all your drones with you. So that means bringing RC, Rover, Explore, and Transport, bringing 6 drones to actually build, then bringing some advanced materials like polymers, machine parts, electronics, and orbital probes to help kind of expand your base once you actually land on Mars. Alright, so now when you're actually building your base on Mars, you get to pick where you want to land. So a lot can change here. You can definitely adjust your difficulty bonus depending on where you want to actually start off your game. The topography is a huge deal depending on where you are. If it's very steep, it's going to be very difficult to build there. Also, if the temperature is very low, you're going to have difficulty building some things as well, like water, and with oxygen, you have some issues there. You can also look at your resources and see what areas of Mars actually have the most resources, and also threats. So where the windstorms, the meteors, cold waves, these can all really drastically affect your game. So these do have a huge significant impact on your difficulty bonus. So keep all these in mind when you're actually making your game ahead of time. Alright, when you first get started with your game, you're going to be left with a huge image of your terrain, and you're going to see, the general map area of where you are. So first things first, you're going to see a highlighted tile indicating where the one tile that the game has shown you, that where it recommends that you actually start your base. It's not always the best spot, I'm not gonna lie. What I recommend you do is you actually get an orbital probe in the bottom middle of your screen, and what this thing can do is it can actually highlight and reveal tiles nearby where you could have resources there, like water, metals, concrete, and any other really helpful resource that you will require to survive on the planet. So what I really recommend you do is don't just settle your spaceship in the very first tile that's open to you. Always use your orbital probe first, see if there's any good helpful resources nearby. Now, you can always reveal the tiles nearby in the later future. The orbital probe is a way in which you can easily just click on it and do it immediately. You can instantly view many tiles at once, and it's a fun little cheat to use at the very beginning of the game. So definitely use that at first. So survey the area, see what is most effective or efficient place to actually land, and then land in that area. What you're going to want to note is when you do land your spaceship, when you do select the spaceship icon in the bottom middle of your screen, you're going to see there's a huge hexagon around it. What you're going to want to do is you're going to make sure that you get as many of these resources within that hexagon, because that is the building radius of the drones that are attached to your rocket ship. So basically, you can't work on anything that's outside of the hexagon. If the resource is outside of the hexagon, you'll have to wait till later stages of the game to be able to work on it. So make sure you start your location off in the right place, or else you'll have some issues later on. So the first thing you're going to want to do once you land on Mars is gather resources. So as you can see, you have a lot of drones at your disposal. You have about, I think, 8 or 10 to work with. Then you've also got several larger rovers. So what you're going to want to do first is try and gather some resources. So you've got a couple with you. You've got some stuff in your spaceship. You've got some advanced resources like machine parts and polymers, but you want to get some basic stuff like concrete and metal. So first things first, you want to build a concrete extractor. I would be completely stunned if there wasn't a source of concrete within your landing radius, mainly because it's an incredibly important resource and it's incredibly common. I've never had a shortage of concrete before, so make sure you put an extractor down on there and get started powering that with something that's easy to build with either a large solar panel or a Stirling generator. Get that going. Also, what I recommend is a fun tip. Put down some depots. If you go to the build tab and go to storage, build some universal depots on the ground kind of by your ship. And then within the huge hexagonal region that your base encompasses, your drones will actually work within that region to gather all the resources and will try its best to fill those depots with material. So it'll fill the depots with material from your own spaceship, and it'll also go around and mining metals and polymers, anything that's on the surface. So all surface deposits will be mined within your base's perimeter as soon as you start putting down depots, because how the game works is that it programs drones to want to fill the depots to max capacity at all times. So by putting down those depots, it'll actually make the drones go and harvest all the materials that are in the nearby area by which the ones that it can actually harvest. So putting that down at the very beginning is a really, really good idea. Just so you don't start mining metal whenever you need it. It means you always have a backup supply. So I recommend you do that as well. The third step is going to be all about technology and technological resource. So when you click on the Erlenmeyer flask in the top left corner of your screen, you're brought to this technology menu right here. We get to show what technologies you actually want to research and work towards. So there's a lot to choose from. You got biotech, engineering, robotics, physics, social, and breakthrough. Mainly, breakthrough is kind of like a special category where it's if you find an anomaly. Anomaly are those yellow little circles on the map. What you want to do is to deal with an anomaly, you send an RC Explorer to it, right-click on it, it'll travel to it, it'll analyze the anomaly, and it can lead to technological advances or breakthroughs, and that can lead to more research and higher technology. So the most important things, if you look at it on your top right, you're going to see your available funding, the research per day, and how much you can spend in general. So research per soul is how much technology you get per day, and that goes towards your research queue. Your research queue consisting of all the technology you want to research, and then you can see how much each one costs. At the beginning, they're usually about 1,000 research, but as you move forward, they can cost up to 5,000, even 7,000 research. So it can be quite expensive once you get further along in the game. Also worth noting that the skill tree that you follow through like biotech, engineering, etc., it's never the same. It actually changes every time you play the game. It's always unique, so you'll never play the exact same game twice. So keep that in mind when you're playing, that it's hard to follow a specific strategy every single time because it changes every single time. The other thing I want to talk about is outsourcing. Outsourcing is basically paying companies on Earth to do the research for you. You have your available funding in the top right corner, and you can actually spend that money to outsource technology for a certain amount of days and get a technological boost that can go towards researching those items in your queue. So that's really worth it. If you need to get some technological advances ASAP, it's definitely worth it, especially with this build when you have so much money to deal with. The International Mars Mission sponsor is without a doubt really, really easy to use, so they give you a ton of money for funding. So it makes sense later on in game to definitely use that for more research. Fourth step is going to be all about power. Power is very, very important when we're starting off this game, mainly because this is like a drone army on a foreign planet. You got to make sure that everything is actually being powered properly. You got to make sure that your power resources are actually efficient and they're doing their job well. So first things first, got to look at the two different power types when you first get started. You can either go with large solar panels, which are quite good, quite cheap to build, and wind turbines. So the issue here is that with large solar panels, they're great. They're super cheap. They only require metal to build. That's it, just metal to build and maintain. But the drawback is that they only actually capture power during the day because they're solar panels, obviously. So if you want to go with a solar panel, you'll actually need to buy several batteries. Now, batteries can be a pain because they require concrete and polymers. Concrete's pretty cheap, but polymers can be a bit harder to find. You can find some on the surface of Mars. You definitely brought a lot along on your spaceship. So you do have polymers at your fingertips. You can definitely use a couple, but you don't have a lot of it. It's not in excess. The other option is that you have to go look at wind turbines. So wind turbines are great, but because they operate 24/7, but they're very, very expensive. And to build a wind turbine, you actually require concrete and machine parts. Now, machine parts are much more uncommon. They're much more rare than polymers, for the main reason that for machine parts, you actually need to build a factory for that, and your factory needs to require colonists to actually work on it if you want to produce it in your actual game. The only two ways to get machine parts are to actually produce them, like I said, or to actually get them shipped to you on a cargo ship from Earth. So they're kind of an uncommon resource. I don't like to burn machine parts for the main part that they're kind of hard to find. You know, you don't find machine parts naturally. You find polymers naturally every once in a while, but machine parts you can't find them on Mars. So if you ever have a very wind-heavy base, that's all, based on solar panel or wind turbines, and you run out of machine parts, you will be out of power. Simple as that. That's why I'm not a fan of machine parts being used in power devices, because they're used in so many different things. It sucks if they go out of commission, because then you just can't fix them, and then you get screwed with no power, then everything dies. So I recommend a mix of about 1/3 wind power, and then 2/3 solar power with batteries. It just seems to be the best option. Alright, so step 5 is going to be all about life support. Life support is very, very important because that's what's actually going to keep your citizens alive when they come to Mars. So, I know in this step I actually did life support before power. Usually I do it the other way around. So I have power, I like to usually build power, or build enough power sources to be able to fund my growth of my base. But in this case, I got super, super excited because I found a water deposit on Mars. That's a huge, huge deal because usually there's only 2 ways you can get water. Water vaporizers or water extractors. Vaporizers are bad, 100%. You only get 1 water from them, and they're just inefficient. You can only get 1 water, production. If you look at a water extractor, you can get up to 5 water from a single extractor, and you can have multiple extractors around a single source of water. So you can get multiple, you can get a ton of water from a single water source, which is just huge. It's a big deal when you find a water source. So I really recommend building near them if you have the chance. Anyway, so water is important. You can either use a water vaporizer or extractor. Use the extractor if you have the opportunity. And then also I recommend you build a water tower somewhere, so in case you ever do have a broken pipe somewhere, or the well runs dry, you'll always have that backup source to keep your citizens alive for just enough time to build a new one. The other thing you're going to need is going to be oxygen. As you know, people tend to breathe oxygen. If you run out of it, they will die. So what I recommend is building a Moxie. It's very, very easy to build. Building oxygen, or creating oxygen in this game, is very simple. Water is much more concerned. You can build a Moxie anywhere. It produces 2 base production of O2. It's very, very simple to use and build, so I always recommend that. And I would recommend building an oxygen tank as well, just in case the machine breaks, goes for maintenance or something, or a pipe breaks. Just make sure that you have an oxygen tank and just a secure backup in case anything goes wrong. So life support it's pretty key, not gonna lie. So the 6th step is going to be all about domes. Now, domes are very, very important in this game because it's how you actually have colonists live on the planet. So it's pretty crucial. If you want to get to any sort of late game, you're going to have people actually living on the planet. So you got to make sure that your colonists are comfortable when they're living there. So first things first, to build the most basic dome, it's pretty straightforward. You're only going to need 80 concrete, 20 metals, and 10 polymers. The polymers may be a bit difficult depending on what you've been making. If you've made a lot of batteries, it might be kind of difficult. But when you're first playing the game in a really easy stage, you can just simply send a cargo ship with more polymers, and you should have no problems building this. So it consumes 15 energy, 1 oxygen, and 1 water per day, and it requires 1 concrete to actually maintain it. So it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing too difficult to make, and that's the most basic dome. There are several types, but we'll be focusing on the basic one today because this is just a crash course. So once you get that built, you're going to try and make sure that when you place it, that you get as many resources around it as possible. There are certain resources that the drones actually can't get access to. The most notable examples being underground metals, which are very, very important. You actually set up a underground metal extractor, which is super convenient, way more convenient than getting surface metals from the surface of Mars, so keep that in mind. And you can also get rare earth metals, which will actually sell for money when you export them back to Earth. You can actually get more money that you can use for funding your technology research. So there are some huge benefits to having a colony, because your colonists will actually do jobs for you, like extracting metal, which is super, super important in this game, because metal is a very key element in building a lot of things. Next up, that's worth noting is you can actually build advanced resources with these. So I'm talking machine parts, electronics, polymers, fuel. Even there's a lot of really helpful things that actually fuel doesn't rely on humans, but the rest of them do. They actually rely on humans being involved in the process of making it. So that means you'll actually need to place all these production lines within the dome. Machine parts and electronics can be placed directly inside the dome, but the polymer factory will have to be placed outside the dome, but within the dome's hexagon, so colonists can still work on it. Same thing with the rare metal extractor and the metal extractor. They both have to be within the hexagon of the dome, so colonists can then work on it. So it's very, very important that you place the dome in a good spot. That pretty much sums up how the dome works. You got to make sure that before you actually send a colonist to the dome, that you already have housing set up, already have farms set up so they don't starve the second they get there. Make sure you have a backup reserve of oxygen and water in case valves break. I usually like to have an actual separate backup of life support systems on a different part of the dome as it connects to the rest of my system. In case there's a valve leak, people don't starve and die, so that's always a really helpful thing to do. Alright, so step 7 will be all about colonists. Now, colonists are very, very important to this game because they affect how your entire civilization runs. There will be a bit of overlap between this section and the last section. We're about talking about domes, because there are a couple overlapping parts and aspects, so let's jump right into it. So when you first actually want to get your passengers or colonists to come to Mars, you want to go to the bottom left corner of your screen and click on that little rocket ship icon. Then you want to actually go and check out passengers. So you no cargo ships, you want to bring up some passengers to the colony. So how it's going to work is you actually get to pick the trait that you want from your colonists. When you're first playing a very easy difficulty, there's going to be a huge list of people that want to come to Mars, and it'll be really, really easy to break it down. At most, you can have 12 people come on a single ship, so keep that in mind. From that 12, like founding group, your entire civilization will spread. So make sure that those founding 12 members are they're worthy to be on Mars. So there's a lot of things you need to consider. First of all, their age groups. So you got children, youth, adult, middle-aged, and seniors. You want to get youth and adults. You want to skip out on the middle-aged, seniors, and children. You want to just kind of ignore that. That's just a bit too much. They won't be able to do much work, and it's just not helpful. You want to get people that are actually young and more, motivated, that will work longer than anyone else that you'll bring. So keep that in mind. Next thing, there's specializations. So there's several specializations, such as being a botanist, engineer, geologist, medic, scientist, or a security expert, or having no specialty whatsoever. So that's kind of disappointing. But if you have a lot of factories, bring engineers, because they work best when they're building in a factory. You actually get a nice production bonus when they're working in your factories. If you have a lot of extractors, like metal extractors nearby, or rare earth extractors, you want to get more geologists, because they'll do a better job for you, and they'll create more production for you. So it's really, really important to cater what your colony needs, and actually try and get colonists from Earth that'll match that. So it is really, really important to try and find a happy medium. Next up, it's also looking at you can get sex, male, female, and other, and then perks. Perks are really important because they actually show, those are like several other boosts, kind of like specializations, but you can get a specialization, a perk, and a flaw. You can get all three of these different combinations, so keep that in mind. So you can get like celebrity, compose, enthusiast, fit, gamer, sexy, survivor. There's a bunch of them that each offer their own kind of boost to the game. So we're talking like celebrity generates funding when they're when they're actually in the colony, so they get more money to spend on research, which is kind of a nice bonus. The sexy perk means that they have a higher birth rate. If they're religious, it increases higher individual base morale for those who are religious. It's really, really nice to see. Workaholic's a great one because they increase individual performance by 20%, and there's no penalty for having them work hard. So there's a lot of really, really helpful perks in there. Also a lot of flaws, like being an alcoholic, having chronic condition, being an idiot, a gambler, hypochondriac. There's a lot of really bad flaws You want to make sure that people coming to the planet don't have any flaws. So it's really, really important to try and select carefully. When you're playing in easy difficulty, it's really, really simple to narrow it down and just have people that have positive traits and negative traits. It's possible for someone to have all positive traits and 0 flaws. That is actually possible. So it's important to actually try and figure that out and get all people that are very pro, have good perks, and get rid of the ones that have flaws. So it's quite simple to do that when you're playing easy difficulty. When it gets harder, it's not so much. Now, some interesting quirks. There's only 5. There's Guru, Tourist, Vegan, Empath, and Dreamer. Vegan's helpful because they actually don't eat meat, and they'll be just a-okay eating grass and stuff that you'll be growing on the planet, so it's really helpful to have that. Just basically saying that it's very, very helpful to look at these specializations and perks before you bring colonists to Mars, because they can drastically change your game. And remember, this is how your colony will actually grow, so make sure that your first batch of colonists are actually worthwhile bringing. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, definitely drop a like rating down below. It means the world to me. As soon as we do, or if we do hit that 15 like goal, I will be sure to post a Let's Play of this game later on this week, so stay tuned for that. If you have any comments or questions and you're struggling with the game, feel free to drop those in the comments down below. I'll do my absolute best to answer you as fast as possible. If you actually want to subscribe for more content, definitely feel free to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. I'll be posting some more gaming tech reviews later on this month. Thanks again to Paradox Games for sending me an early access code to the game. It's been really, really fun working with you guys, and I'll see you all soon. Thanks.